Jake Morrison stood perfectly still outside the grand hall, his boots locked in position on the polished marble floor. The armor he wore was heavy and made soft humming sounds as the power pack on his back kept all the systems running. He had been standing guard for 3 hours now, and his legs were starting to feel the strain. But he didn't move. That wasn't what Marines did. The planet Viridian 7 was beautiful. Through the tall windows behind him, Jake could see purple trees swaying in a gentle breeze and 3 moons hanging in a pink sky. It looked like something from a painting. This world was hosting the biggest diplomatic meeting in the galaxy, and Jake's job was simple. Stand here and look professional. Don't embarrass Earth. Earth had only joined the Galactic Coalition 3 years ago. Humans were the new kids in a galaxy full of ancient alien races who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Every day, Jake felt the weight of representing his entire species. One wrong move could make all of humanity look bad. The armor didn't help. Jake knew how it looked to the aliens who passed by. The suit was bulky, made of gray metal plates bolted together with visible rivets. Wires and tubes ran along the outside, connecting to the power pack that hummed on his back. Compared to the sleek, almost invisible shields and energy fields the other aliens used, human armor looked like something built in a garage. And the aliens never let him forget it. A group of tall, elegant beings walked past. Their skin sparkled like crystal in the light, shifting between blue and purple colors. These were Valorians, one of the oldest and most respected races in the Coalition. They wore flowing robes that seemed to move on their own, and they walked with the kind of grace that made everything look easy. Jake heard them laugh as they looked at him. One of them said something in their musical language, and the others laughed harder. He didn't need a translator to know they were making fun of his armor. He kept his eyes forward and didn't react. "Look at the human," one of them said in perfect English, wanting him to understand, standing there in his metal cage. "Do they really need all that machinery just to walk around?" More laughter. Jake's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. Captain Rita Hayes, his commanding officer, had been very clear about this. "You will smile and take it," she had said before the mission. "Earth needs this summit to go well. We need trade agreements. We need allies. So if some alien wants to make fun of your armor or your face or your mother, you smile and take it. Understand?" Jake understood, so he stood there and took it. The day passed slowly. More aliens came and went. Some ignored him completely. Others stared at his armor like he was a museum exhibit. A few more made jokes. By the time the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Jake's feet hurt, and his back ached from standing so long in the heavy suit. Then she arrived. Princess Lyria of House Zenthar entered the hallway with an entourage of servants and guards. Jake had seen pictures of her in the mission briefing, but they didn't do her justice. She was tall, even for a Valorian, with skin that glowed like sapphire. Her eyes were bright silver, and her hair floated around her head like she was underwater, moving in ways that defied gravity. She wore a dress that looked like it was made from starlight itself. She was also known for having a sharp tongue and no patience for those she considered beneath her. Lyria stopped when she saw Jake. Her silver eyes looked him up and down, taking in every detail of his armor. Then she smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "My goodness," she said, her voice carrying down the hallway. "Is this what humans call advanced technology?" Her entourage stopped with her, forming a small crowd. Jake kept his eyes forward, looking at nothing. Lyria walked closer, circling him slowly like a predator studying prey. "It's so bulky, so crude. Look at all these external components. It's like someone built a soldier out of spare parts and hoped for the best." One of her servants, a smaller Valorian with green-tinted skin, giggled. "Your Highness, perhaps this is their best. Humans are a very young species. They probably don't know any better." "True," Lyria said, stopping in front of Jake. She was close enough now that he could smell something like flowers and rain coming from her. They've only been in space for what? A few hundred years? We've had faster-than-light travel for 15,000 years. I suppose we should be patient with them. Another Valorian in her group spoke up. I heard their armor needs external power because humans are too weak to move without mechanical assistance. This got a big laugh from the group. Lyria tapped one long finger against Jake's chest plate. The metal rang with a dull thunk. It sounds hollow, cheap materials probably, and all these tubes and wires on the outside where they can be damaged. What kind of engineer designs armor like this? Jake felt his hands forming fists inside his gauntlets. He forced them to relax, smile, and take it. I wonder, Lyria continued, if we removed this primitive machinery, would the human inside even be able to stand on his own? Or would he collapse like a puppet with cut strings? Her entourage found this hilarious. Their laughter echoed off the marble walls. Lyria leaned in close, her silver eyes meeting Jake's. For the first time, he looked directly at her. She smiled wider. No response? How disappointing. Perhaps the armor limits his ability to speak as well as his ability to move. She turned to her servants. Come. Let's not waste more time with Earth's awkward attempt at military presence. The dinner is about to start, and I'm sure the conversation there will be much more intelligent. They left in a wave of flowing robes and musical laughter. Jake stood alone in the hallway again, his armor humming quietly, his jaw clenched so tight it hurt. That night, Jake lay in his small quarters in the human section of the diplomatic compound. His armor stood in the corner, inactive and silent. He stared at the ceiling and thought about Lyria's words. He thought about all the jokes and mockery he'd endured since arriving on this planet. The aliens didn't understand. They thought the armor was humanity's attempt to be stronger, to compete with species that were naturally superior. They thought humans wore these suits because without them, humans were weak and pathetic. They had no idea how wrong they were. Jake thought about Earth, spinning in space far from here. A heavy world with crushing gravity where storms could tear buildings apart and where humanity had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through sheer stubbornness. A world that had made humans into something the galaxy had never seen before. The armor wasn't there to make him strong. It was there to make him safe for everyone else. But the aliens didn't know that. And orders were orders. So tomorrow, Jake would put the armor back on, and he would stand guard, and he would smile and take it. At least that was the plan. He had no way of knowing that tomorrow, everything would change. The explosion shook the entire building. Jake was at his post again, standing guard outside a conference room where Ambassador Paul Chen was meeting with trade representatives. The blast came from somewhere deeper in the compound, a deep boom that rattled the windows and made the floor shake under his boots. His helmet radio came alive instantly. All security teams, we have a breach in the East Wing, multiple hostiles. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Jake's training kicked in. He opened the conference room door and shouted inside, Sir, we need to evacuate now. Ambassador Chen looked up from his documents, saw the serious look on Jake's face, and didn't argue. He grabbed his briefcase and followed Jake into the hallway where other security teams were already moving diplomats toward the safe zones. More explosions echoed through the building. Screams followed. The smell of smoke began to drift through the air. Captain Hayes appeared, running down the hallway with her rifle ready. Morrison, get the ambassador to the bunker and then report to the armory. We've got a situation. What kind of situation, ma'am? The bad kind. Terrorists. They've taken hostages in the main banquet hall, including most of the coalition leadership. Her face was grim. Including Princess Lyria. Jake felt his stomach drop. As much as the princess had mocked him, the thought of her in danger made his hands tighten on his rifle. How many terrorists? At least 20 that we know of. They're armed with military-grade weapons and they've set up shield generators. The coalition's elite forces tried to breach 5 minutes ago and got pushed back. 2 dead, 6 wounded. Jake got Ambassador Chen to the bunker where other Earth diplomats were gathering. The ambassador grabbed his arm before he left. Jake, be careful. Earth can't afford to lose people here. Yes, sir. Jake ran to the armory where the rest of the human security team was gathering. There were only 6 of them total. 6 humans with their bulky armor against an unknown number of well-armed terrorists who had already beaten the Coalition's best fighters. Captain Hayes was arguing with a tall alien who wore the uniform of Coalition security. The alien was insectoid with multiple arms and a hard shell that gleamed like polished wood. Your forces are not needed, human, the alien was saying. This is a matter for professional soldiers. Your primitive equipment would only get in the way. My team is trained and ready, Hayes shot back. We can help. Help? The alien made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. You've been here 3 days and your guards can barely walk in those mechanical suits. The answer is no. Hayes looked like she wanted to punch him, but before she could respond, another voice cut in. Let them try. Everyone turned to see an old Valorian in elegant robes walking toward them. Jake recognized him from the briefing files. High Chancellor Vex, one of the most powerful beings in the Coalition. Your Excellence, the insectoid alien said, bowing. These humans are not qualified. The qualified forces have failed, Vex interrupted. The terrorists are demanding we withdraw all military forces and give them a ship. Or they start executing hostages, starting with my niece, Princess Lyria. His ancient eyes looked at Hayes. You say your team can help? Hayes stood straight. We can try, sir. Vex studied her for a long moment. Then try. You have 1 hour before we must begin negotiating with terrorists. If you can end this, Earth will have our gratitude. The insectoid alien started to protest, but Vex silenced him with a look and walked away. Hayes turned to her team, 6 Marines in bulky armor, looking up at her with determination. All right, people. Here's the situation. The terrorists are holding hostages in the main banquet hall. It's on the 3rd floor, center of the building. The Coalition forces tried a direct assault and got hammered by heavy weapons and energy shields. She pulled up a hologram of the building. We go in quiet. There's a maintenance tunnel system that runs under the whole compound. We can use it to get close without being detected. Jake, Lisa, you're our best close-quarters fighters. You'll go through the ventilation system and drop in from above while the rest of us create a distraction. Corporal Lisa Grant nodded. She was small and fast, even in armor. Understood, ma'am. The rest of you will hit them from the front, draw their attention, make them think that's the real attack. Questions? Private Danny Cole raised his hand. Ma'am, those terrorists took down Coalition elite forces. What makes us think we can do better? Hayes smiled grimly. Because we're human, Cole, and humans don't quit. Now gear up. We move in 5 minutes. The maintenance tunnels were tight and dark. Jake led the way, his armor's lights cutting through the blackness. Behind him came Lisa, and behind her, the other 4 Marines. The tunnels had been built for small maintenance robots, not soldiers in combat armor. Jake's suit scraped against the walls as he crawled forward. The power pack whined with effort. His heads-up display showed the battery draining faster than normal from all the extra work the motors were doing to move him through the cramped space. This is stupid, he muttered to himself. The armor that was supposed to protect him was now his biggest liability. In these tight spaces, he could barely move. If they encountered resistance here, in this tunnel, they'd be sitting ducks. They reached a junction where the tunnel split. Hayes's voice came through the radio. Jake, Lisa, you're at the split. Take the right path. It'll bring you to a vertical shaft that goes up to the 3rd floor. The rest of us are moving into position. Jake turned right and immediately ran into a problem. The tunnel got even narrower. His armor didn't fit. He tried to force his way through, but the metal plates caught on the tunnel walls. He pushed harder. The power pack whined in protest. His battery indicator dropped another 5%. Jake, Lisa's voice behind him. What's wrong? He looked at the tunnel ahead, then down at his armor. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "Lisa, I'm taking off the armor." "What?" "Jake, that's against regulations. We're supposed to complete the mission. I can't do that stuck in this tunnel." He was already unlocking the chest plate. "You too. We'll never make it through in these suits." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Captain Hayes is going to kill us. Only if we fail." The chest plate came off with a hiss of releasing pressure seals. Jake felt the weight lift from his shoulders. "If we succeed, she'll probably only yell at us." The armor came off piece by piece. Chest plate, leg guards, arm sections, the heavy boots. Finally, the helmet. Jake stripped down to his black combat fatigues and felt the air on his skin for the first time since landing on this planet. And he felt lighter. So much lighter. Viridian 7 had less gravity than Earth. Back home, Jake weighed 200 pounds. Here, he weighed about 140, but the armor added another 100 pounds on top of that. Without it, he felt like he could float. Lisa finished removing her armor, too. She was grinning. "Oh, man, I forgot what this feels like." "Stay focused," Jake said, but he was grinning, too. Without the armor restricting his movements, his body felt alive in ways it hadn't for days. "Let's move." They left the armor in the tunnel and crawled forward. The tunnel that had been impossible before was now easy. Jake moved fast, his muscles responding instantly instead of waiting for the armor's motors to assist. He could feel the strength in his arms and legs, no longer dampened by the suit's safety limiters. They reached the vertical shaft and looked up. It was a straight climb to the 3rd floor, maybe 40 feet. In armor, it would have been slow and noisy. Without armor, Jake just started climbing, his fingers finding holds in the metal wall, his legs pushing him upward with ease in the low gravity. At the top, they found a ventilation grate that looked down into a storage room next to the banquet hall. Through the walls, they could hear voices, shouting, someone crying. Jake looked at Lisa. "Ready?" She checked her pistol, the only weapon small enough to bring through the tunnels. "Ready." Below them, an explosion boomed. Hayes and the others had started their distraction. It was time to move. Jake pulled the grate off quietly and dropped into the room below. In Earth's gravity, it would have been a hard landing. Here, he barely made a sound. Lisa landed beside him like a cat. They were inside. No armor, no heavy weapons, just 2 humans about to face trained killers to save alien diplomats who thought humans were primitive and weak. Jake smiled. Time to show them what humans could really do. Jake pressed his ear against the door that led from the storage room into the hallway. He could hear footsteps, heavy ones, at least 2 guards, maybe 3, walking back and forth outside. Lisa moved beside him, silent as a shadow. She held up 3 fingers, then pointed at the door. 3 guards. She'd heard them too. The sounds of fighting from the front entrance were getting louder. Hayes and the others were doing their job, keeping the terrorists busy. But it wouldn't last forever. Jake and Lisa needed to move now. Jake looked at Lisa and made a series of hand signals. He would go first, fast and hard. She would follow and cover the right side. She nodded. He took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. Without the armor, he felt every sensation clearly. The cool air on his skin. The solid floor under his feet. The strength in his muscles, no longer held back by safety limiters and mechanical joints. On Earth, Jake could bench press 300 pounds. That was good, but not amazing. Here, with 70% of Earth's gravity, he was so much stronger. He could jump higher, move faster, hit harder. The armor had been keeping all of that locked away. Now it was free. Jake threw the door open and launched himself into the hallway. The 3 guards were insectoid warriors, the same species as the Coalition security commander. They had hard shells covering their bodies like natural armor. and each one carried an energy rifle. They were turning toward the sound of the door opening, but they were too slow. Jake crossed the 20 feet between them in less than a second. The first guard managed to raise his rifle, but Jake was already inside his reach. He grabbed the rifle with one hand and yanked it away. The guard made a clicking sound of surprise. His 4 arms tried to grab Jake, but Jake was faster. He drove his fist into the guard's chest, right where the shell plates met. The crack was loud. The guard's shell broke under the impact, and he dropped to the floor, gasping for air. The second guard fired his weapon, but Jake was already moving. The energy blast hit the wall where he'd been standing a moment before. Jake jumped, and in the low gravity, he went up nearly 10 feet. He kicked off the ceiling and came down on the guard like a missile, his boots hitting the alien's head. There was another crack, and the guard collapsed. The third guard was backing away, all 4 of his arms reaching for something on his belt. A grenade, maybe, or an alarm. Lisa shot him twice with her pistol, clean shots to the legs. The guard fell, conscious, but out of the fight. The whole thing had taken maybe 5 seconds. Lisa stared at Jake with wide eyes. "Holy hell, I knew we were strong without the armor, but that was—" "Controlled," Jake finished. "We need to stay controlled. Come on." They moved down the hallway toward the banquet hall. The sounds of fighting from the front were even louder now. Hayes's team was really giving the terrorists something to think about. Good. They passed a window, and Jake glanced outside. He could see alien security forces gathered at a distance, watching the building. They wouldn't rush in while hostages were at risk. Everything depended on Jake and Lisa now. The banquet hall's side entrance was just ahead. 2 more guards stood outside it. These ones weren't insectoid. They were Kralix, a reptilian species known for their thick scales and raw strength. Each one was over 7 feet tall and probably weighed 400 pounds. On their homeworld, they were apex predators. But their homeworld had normal gravity. The Kralix guards saw Jake and Lisa coming. One of them laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "2 humans? Without armor? This will be easy." The first guard charged forward, his massive arms spread wide to grab Jake. He was fast for his size, but Jake was faster. He ducked under the reaching arms and drove his shoulder into the guard's midsection. Then he lifted. On Earth, lifting a 400-pound alien would have been impossible. Here, Jake picked the guard up like he was lifting a large dog. The guard's eyes went wide with shock. Jake spun and threw him into the wall. The impact left a dent in the metal. The second guard pulled out a knife. It was a big blade, meant for his large hands. He slashed at Lisa, but she leaned back and the knife passed inches from her face. She grabbed his wrist with both hands and twisted. The guard was strong, but leverage was leverage. His wrist bent at an angle it wasn't meant to go, and he dropped the knife with a roar of pain. Lisa kicked him in the knee, hard. Something crunched, and the guard fell. She hit him once more, a precise strike to the side of his head, and he went still. Jake checked the first guard, still breathing but unconscious. "We're getting good at this." "The armor makes us slow," Lisa said. "Without it, we're actually scary." They reached the banquet hall door. Jake could hear voices inside. A lot of them. Hostages crying, terrorists shouting. Someone was begging in a language he didn't understand. He looked through a small window in the door. The banquet hall was huge, designed to hold hundreds of people. Right now, it held about 50 hostages sitting on the floor in the center of the room, surrounded by terrorists with guns. He counted 12 guards inside, not including whoever might be in the side rooms. And there, among the hostages, he saw Princess Lyria. She was sitting with her back straight, her glowing skin dim with fear, but her face still proud. Even as a prisoner, she maintained her dignity. 2 other Valorians sat near her, probably her servants from yesterday. They looked terrified. Lyria looked angry. The terrorist leader was easy to spot. He was a massive Kralix, even bigger than the guards outside. He wore armor covered in weapons and had a scar running down the left side of his face. He was shouting orders at his soldiers, waving a large rifle around for emphasis. Jake pulled back from the window. 12 inside plus their leader. The hostages are in the middle with no cover. If we go in shooting, people will die. Lisa thought for a moment. We need to separate the leader from the others. Make them panic. Agreed. When people panic, they make mistakes. Jake looked at the door. Hayes's distraction is working, but it won't last forever. We go in now, hard and fast. Take down as many as we can before they know what's happening. Just like training, Lisa said. Nothing like training, Jake corrected. Training didn't have hostages. We can't miss. Lisa checked her pistol. Then we don't miss. Jake took one more deep breath. His muscles felt coiled like springs, ready to release. Without the armor, his body was a weapon all on its own. Faster than the aliens expected. Stronger than they believed possible. The galaxy thought humans were weak. Thought they needed machines to compete. Time to prove them wrong. He kicked the door open and ran inside. The terrorists turned toward the noise, but they were too slow. Jake was already among them. The nearest guard tried to swing his rifle around, but Jake grabbed it and twisted. The metal bent in his hands. The guard stared in shock. Jake hit him once, a clean punch to the jaw, and the guard dropped. Lisa came in behind him, moving to the right. She shot 2 guards who were raising their weapons. Both shots hit their targets. Both guards fell. The hostages started screaming. Some tried to run. Jake shouted, "Stay down! We're here to help!" The terrorist leader roared and fired his rifle. The energy blast passed so close to Jake's head that he felt the heat. Jake dove behind a pillar. Pieces of marble exploded where the blast hit. "Humans!" the leader shouted. "I will tear you apart!" More guards were coming from the side rooms. Jake counted at least 6 more. 20 total then, maybe more. He and Lisa were outnumbered 10-1. But they were human, and humans didn't quit. Jake jumped from behind the pillar, grabbing a table as he moved. In the low gravity, the heavy wooden table felt light as cardboard. He threw it at a group of 3 guards. It hit them like a bowling ball hitting pins, knocking them over in a tangle of limbs and weapons. Lisa was moving like a dancer, dodging shots and returning fire. Every bullet she fired hit exactly where she aimed. Guards fell, wounded but alive. She wasn't trying to kill, just disable. The terrorist leader charged at Jake. Up close, he was even bigger than Jake had thought. His scales were thick as armor plates. His clawed hands could probably rip through steel. He swung a massive fist at Jake's head. Jake ducked, and the fist passed over him. He punched the leader in the stomach as hard as he could. His fist hit the thick scales and stopped. It was like punching a wall. The leader didn't even flinch. The leader grabbed Jake with both hands and lifted him off the ground. Pathetic human, so weak, so small. He started to squeeze. Jake felt the pressure on his ribs. The leader was incredibly strong. But Jake had an advantage the leader didn't know about. He brought his arms up between the leader's arms and struck outward, breaking the grip. Then he drove both feet into the leader's chest. In Earth's gravity, it would have been a good hit. Here, with less gravity and all of Jake's strength behind it, it was devastating. The leader flew backward, crashing through a table and hitting the wall hard enough to crack the stone. The leader tried to stand up. His eyes were wide with disbelief. Impossible. You're just human. Humans are weak. Jake walked toward him. We let you think that. The armor isn't to make us strong. It's to make us safe for you. He hit the leader again, this time in the jaw. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the hall. The leader's eyes rolled back and he fell unconscious. The remaining terrorists saw their leader fall and lost their nerve. Some dropped their weapons and raised their hands. Others tried to run. Lisa shot out their legs. Within seconds, it was over. Jake looked around the banquet hall. Guards were scattered everywhere, wounded or unconscious. Hostages were huddled together, staring at him and Lisa with expressions of shock and awe. The whole fight had taken maybe 2 minutes. Princess Lyria was still sitting on the floor, her silver eyes locked on Jake. Her mouth was open slightly, her usual confident expression replaced with complete and utter amazement. Jake walked over to her and offered his hand. "Your Highness, are you hurt?" She just stared at him, speechless. Princess Lyria finally took Jake's offered hand. Her fingers were cool against his palm, and she stood slowly, still staring at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Around them, the other hostages were getting to their feet, some crying with relief, others checking on wounded friends. Coalition security forces burst through the main doors, weapons ready. The insectoid commander from before stopped in his tracks when he saw the scene. Terrorist guards were scattered everywhere, disabled or unconscious. The hostages were safe. And standing in the middle of it all were 2 humans in combat fatigues, without any armor at all. "Impossible," the commander whispered. Captain Hayes came through right behind him, still in her armor. She looked around the room, saw Jake and Lisa standing there unarmored, and her expression went from worried to furious in about 2 seconds. "Morrison, Grant, what the hell did you do with your armor?" "Left it in the tunnel, ma'am," Jake said. "It wouldn't fit." "Wouldn't fit? That armor costs more than you make in 5 years, and you left it in a tunnel?" "Yes, ma'am. I can show you where." Hayes looked like she wanted to yell more. But then she saw all the disabled terrorists and the safe hostages. Her expression softened slightly. "We'll discuss this later. Are you 2 hurt?" "No, ma'am." "The hostages?" "All safe. A few minor injuries, but nothing serious." Hayes nodded slowly. "Good work, Marines. Now get yourselves checked out by medical and find that damn armor." Medical teams were already rushing in, checking the hostages and treating the wounded terrorists. Jake watched as they loaded the terrorist leader onto a stretcher. The big Kralix was still unconscious, his jaw swollen and definitely broken. Princess Lyria hadn't moved. She was still standing beside Jake, her silver eyes studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Finally, she spoke. "How? How what, Your Highness? How did you do that? You defeated 20 armed soldiers. You threw a table like it was made of paper. You broke a Kralix's jaw with your bare hands. Kralix scales are harder than most metals." Her voice was quiet, confused. "Yesterday I watched you struggle to walk in that armor. Today you move like a human without armor," Jake finished. "I don't understand." More Valorians were approaching now, including the old Chancellor that Jake had seen earlier. Vex looked at the scene with ancient, knowing eyes. "Interesting. Very interesting indeed." "Uncle," Lyria said, turning to him. "Did you see what these humans did?" "I saw the results. Most impressive." Vex looked at Jake. "Young man, your people have done the Coalition a great service today. You have our thanks." "Just doing our job, sir." "No," Vex said firmly. "What you did was far beyond duty. You risked your lives for people who have shown you little respect." His eyes flickered to Lyria for a moment. "Some of us have been most unkind to humanity since your arrival." Lyria's glowing skin dimmed slightly, a sign of embarrassment in Valorians. Yes. I was cruel yesterday. I mocked your armor. I called you primitive." She looked at Jake directly. "I was wrong. I see that now, but I still don't understand. If you can do this without armor, why do you wear it at all?" Jake glanced at Captain Hayes, who nodded permission to speak. "The armor isn't to make us stronger, Your Highness. It's to make us weaker." "That makes no sense." "It does if you understand where humans come from." Jake gestured toward a chair. "May I explain?" Lyria sat, and Jake sat across from her. Other aliens were gathering around now, curious. The insectoid commander, medical personnel, Valorian nobles, everyone wanted to hear this. "Earth is different from most planets in the Coalition," Jake began. Our gravity is heavier, about 40% heavier than here on Viridian 7. On Earth, I weigh 200 pounds. Here, I weigh about 140. Many species come from high-gravity worlds, the insectoid commander said. That alone doesn't explain— I'm not finished, Jake interrupted, and the commander closed his mandibles in surprise at being cut off. Earth isn't just heavy, it's dangerous. We have storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that can split the ground open, volcanoes, tsunamis, tornadoes. Our world tried to kill us for millions of years. He stood and started pacing, and everyone's eyes followed him. And the wildlife? Oh, the wildlife! We had predators with teeth as long as your arm. We had bears that could rip cars apart. We had tiny insects that could kill with a single bite. We had creatures in the ocean bigger than buildings. Earth was a death world, and humans evolved to survive it. Lyria leaned forward. Go on? So we developed. We got stronger to handle the gravity. We got tougher to survive the predators. We got smarter to outsmart the dangers we couldn't outfight. We became endurance hunters who could track prey for days without stopping. We learned to throw rocks and spears with incredible accuracy. We became really, really good at not dying. Jake looked around at all the aliens listening. Then we reached the stars and found out that most planets aren't like Earth. Most species didn't evolve in hell. They evolved in places that were— He searched for the word. Nicer. Easier. The insectoid commander's shell plates rattled, a sign of offense. Are you saying we're weak? No, Jake said. I'm saying you're normal. Humans aren't normal. We're the weird ones. Captain Hayes stepped forward, deciding to help explain. When humans first joined the coalition, we had several incidents. A human diplomat shook hands with a Valorian ambassador and accidentally broke 3 of her fingers. A human child playing with an alien child in low gravity threw the alien child hard enough to send him to the hospital. A human security guard tried to stop a fight and put 2 people in medical care just by grabbing them. We didn't mean to hurt anyone, Jake continued. But in lower gravity, we're dangerous. Our strength doesn't decrease just because gravity does. We can jump higher, move faster, hit harder. So the coalition made a rule. Humans in diplomatic or civilian settings must wear limiting armor. Understanding dawned on Lyria's face. The armor holds you back. Yes, it adds weight to bring us back to normal Earth gravity. It has motors that limit how fast we can move and how hard we can hit. It keeps us from accidentally hurting people. The servos and limiters restrict a human's strength to roughly coalition standard, Hayes added. About what an average Valorian could do or a Kralix. It makes us safe to be around. Lyria stood up slowly. So yesterday, when I mocked your armor, when I said you were weak and primitive, you were watching us deliberately handicap ourselves so we wouldn't hurt anyone, Jake said. The armor is our courtesy to other species. It's us saying we know we're strong, and we're choosing to limit that strength so you feel comfortable around us. The banquet hall was silent. Every alien there was processing this information. The implications were huge. The insectoid commander spoke quietly. All this time, we thought you wore armor because you were weak, but you wear it because you're strong. Yes. And today, you remove that armor to save us. The mission required it. Lyria walked closer to Jake. She was tall, taller than him by a few inches, but somehow she seemed smaller now. I have been incredibly foolish. I judged your entire species based on appearances. I was arrogant and cruel. Her voice wavered slightly. You had every reason to leave me to my fate. I insulted you, mocked you, called you primitive, but you saved me anyway. That's what humans do, Jake said simply. We help people, even when they don't deserve it, especially when they don't deserve it. Tears started forming in Lyria's silver eyes. In Valorians, tears glowed like liquid light. I am sorry, truly, deeply sorry, not just for myself, but for how my people have treated yours. We thought we were superior, but we were just ignorant. Chancellor Vex stepped forward and placed a hand on Lyria's shoulder. This is a lesson many in the Coalition needed to learn, myself included. He bowed to Jake, a deep, formal bow that made several people gasp. Chancellors didn't bow to anyone. On behalf of the Valorian people and the Coalition, I apologize for our prejudice, and I thank you for your courage and mercy. Jake didn't know what to say. He'd been trained to fight, not to handle apologies from galactic leaders. You're welcome, sir. Hayes spoke up. If we're done with the emotional speeches, I still need to debrief my Marines and recover their equipment. Permission to be dismissed. Of course, Vex said. But Captain, before you go, you should know that the Coalition Council will be hearing about this. Earth has proven itself today. I suspect your people will find many new allies in the coming days. As the medical teams finished their work and security forces led the terrorists away, Jake and Lisa finally had a moment to breathe. They sat on a bench in the hallway while a medical technician checked them for injuries. No armor, no major weapons, outnumbered 10-1, Lisa said. And we won. Yeah. You know what this means, right? They're going to want us to do it again. Jake groaned. I hope not. I like my armor. It's comfortable. Lisa laughed. Comfortable. Right. It's heavy and restrictive and makes us look like walking tanks. But it means I don't have to worry about breaking someone's hand when I shake it. Fair point. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lisa said quietly, She really didn't know, did she? The princess. She really thought we were weak. Nobody knows until they see it. That's why we wear the armor, so they don't have to see it. Until today. Until today, Jake agreed. The medical technician finished his scan. You're both fine. Elevated heart rates and adrenaline, but that's normal after combat. No injuries. Thank you, Jake said. As the technician left, Princess Lyria appeared in the hallway. She looked uncertain, not at all like the confident, mocking noble from yesterday. May I speak with you? She asked Jake. Privately. Lisa stood up. I'll go find our armor. Try not to break anything while I'm gone. Very funny. Lisa grinned and walked away, leaving Jake alone with the princess. Princess Lyria stood in the hallway, her glowing skin shifting between blue and purple in a pattern Jake was starting to recognize as nervousness. She wasn't used to being uncertain, he realized. She'd spent her whole life being confident and superior to everyone around her. I wanted to thank you properly, she said, away from the cameras and the politicians and all the others who will want to turn this into something political. You already thanked me, Jake said, multiple times. I thanked you as a princess thanking a soldier. That felt wrong, formal, distant. She sat on the bench beside him, close but not too close. I wanted to thank you as someone who was very scared and very foolish, thanking someone who saved her life despite having every reason not to. I would never leave someone in danger just because they were mean to me. I know that now. That's what makes you better than me. She looked down at her hands. I've been thinking about what you said, about Earth, about how your world tried to kill you for millions of years. It's not as dramatic as I made it sound. Earth is also beautiful. We have forests and mountains and oceans that are amazing. It's not all death and danger. But the danger shaped you, made you strong. Lyria looked at him. Valoria, my homeworld, is perfect. The weather is always pleasant. The gravity is gentle. We have no natural predators. Our food grows easily. We evolved in paradise and it made us soft. Physically, yes, but also... She touched her chest over her heart. In here. We became arrogant because nothing ever challenged us. Having an easy life isn't a bad thing. It is if it makes you cruel to those who didn't. She shook her head. I looked at your armor and saw weakness. I should have seen strength choosing restraint. I looked at humans and saw primitives. I should have seen survivors. Jake didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the building being secured, wounded being treated, order being restored. Finally, Lyria spoke again. Will you tell me about Earth? The real Earth, not the diplomatic briefing version. I want to understand where you come from. So Jake told her. He told her about growing up in Colorado, about mountains that touched the sky and air so thin you had to work to breathe. He told her about summer thunderstorms that lit up the night with lightning. He told her about winter snow that buried entire houses. He told her about hiking trails where you had to watch for bears and mountain lions. Lyria listened with genuine fascination. And people choose to live in these places, even though it's dangerous? It's home, Jake said simply. Yeah, it can be dangerous, but it's also beautiful. And humans like challenges. We like pushing ourselves. If life is too easy, we get bored and start making up new challenges. Like joining the military and volunteering for dangerous missions? Exactly like that. She smiled. It was a real smile this time, not the cruel mockery from before. I think I'm beginning to understand humans. You're all slightly crazy. Probably, Jake admitted. But it works for us. 3 months passed. The terrorist attack on Viridian 7 became the biggest news story in the coalition. The investigation revealed a massive conspiracy involving corrupt officials from a dozen different species, all working to restart the old conquest wars. The whole coalition security system was reformed. New leadership came in. Old prejudices were questioned, and humanity's reputation changed overnight. Ambassador Chen used the newfound respect to negotiate better trade agreements. Earth gained a seat on the Coalition Security Council. Human technology, which had been dismissed as primitive, was suddenly being studied seriously. Turned out that building things to survive on a death world made them really durable and reliable. Jake Morrison became famous, whether he wanted to or not. The video footage from the banquet hall rescue had spread across every planet in the Coalition. Everyone wanted to see the human who fought without armor and won. He got interview requests from hundreds of news organizations. He ignored all of them. But he did accept one dinner invitation. Princess Lyria had become her planet's official ambassador to Earth. She'd requested the position specifically, wanting to learn more about humanity and help build bridges between Valorians and humans. Her first official act was to sponsor a cultural exchange program. Her second official act was to invite Lieutenant Jake Morrison to a formal dinner. Jake stood outside the restaurant in his dress uniform, his armor polished and gleaming. The armor didn't feel as heavy anymore, or maybe he'd just gotten used to the weight. Either way, he walked inside with his head high. Lyria was waiting at a private table. She wore a dress that looked like it was woven from starlight, and her skin glowed a warm blue. She stood when she saw him and smiled. Lieutenant Morrison, thank you for coming. Princess Lyria, thank you for the invitation. They sat down, and for a few minutes they made polite small talk about the weather and the food and how Earth's moon was different from Valoria's 3 moons. It was nice, but Jake could tell Lyria had something she wanted to say. Finally, over dessert, she said it. I have a gift for you. She pulled out a long, narrow box and slid it across the table. Jake opened it carefully. Inside was a sword. Not a human sword, but a Valorian honor blade. The metal was unlike anything Jake had ever seen, shifting colors in the light like oil on water. The handle was wrapped in some kind of shimmering material. This is too much, Jake said. I can't accept this. You can and you will, Lyria said firmly. Honor blades are given to warriors who have proven themselves in combat. You more than qualify. It would insult me to refuse. Then I accept. Thank you. Jake carefully closed the box. I don't have anything nearly as nice to give you in return. You already gave me something. Lyria reached across the table and touched his hand lightly. You gave me a new perspective. You showed me that strength isn't about how much power you have, but about how you choose to use it. That's worth more than any gift. Jake turned his hand over and squeezed hers gently, very carefully controlling his strength. You're not the same person who mocked my armor 3 months ago. No. That person was foolish and cruel. I'm trying to be better. She smiled. It helps that I have a good teacher. I'm not teaching you anything. You teach me every day, just by being who you are. She pulled her hand back, looking slightly embarrassed. I'm sorry. I'm being too forward. On Valoria, we're taught to be direct about our feelings, but I know humans are more subtle about these things. Jake felt his heart beating faster. What feelings? I think you know. Lyria met his eyes. I've been thinking about you constantly since that day. The way you moved, the way you fought, the way you offered me your hand and asked if I was hurt, even after everything I'd said to you. She paused, searching for words. I admire you. And I would like to know you better, as more than just a diplomatic contact. Jake should have seen this coming, but somehow he hadn't. He'd been so focused on his duties and the political aftermath that he hadn't noticed how often Lyria found excuses to talk to him, how she always seemed to be at the same events he was at, how she looked at him. I'm just a Marine, he said. You're a princess. How would that even work? I don't know, Lyria admitted, but I'd like to find out, if you're interested. Jake thought about it, about the complications it would cause, about the media attention, about what Captain Hayes would say, about all the very good reasons why this was a bad idea. Then he thought about Lyria's smile, about the way she'd genuinely changed over the past 3 months. About the conversations they'd had where she asked real questions and listened to real answers, about how she'd admitted her mistakes and tried to do better. I'm interested, he said, but we take it slow. Get to know each other as people, not as princess and soldier. Just regular. I don't think either of us does regular very well, Lyria laughed. But yes, slow is good. Friends first. Friends first, Jake agreed. They talked for another hour, and this time the conversation flowed easily. They discovered they both liked old music. They both enjoyed hiking, though Lyria had never hiked anywhere as challenging as Earth Mountains. They both thought the Coalition's bureaucracy was frustratingly slow. When the dinner ended, Jake walked Lyria to her transport. Before she got in, she turned to him. Next time I see you in that armor, she said, I'll know what it really means. Not weakness hiding behind metal, but strength choosing gentleness. That's beautiful, Jake. Don't ever forget that. I won't. She kissed his cheek, her lips cool against his skin, and then she was gone. Jake walked back to the human diplomatic quarters, the sword box under his arm, his mind spinning with everything that had happened. Captain Hayes was waiting in his quarters, sitting in his chair with her feet up on his desk. So, she said, you and the princess, huh? It's not like that. We're just friends. Right. And I'm the Queen of Mars. Hayes grinned. Relax, Morrison. I'm not going to give you grief. You're both adults. Just don't let it interfere with your duties. Yes, ma'am. And Morrison? Good work these past few months. Earth is proud of you. I'm proud of you. She stood up and headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and next time you decide to take off your armor and fight terrorists, at least try to remember where you left it. We spent 2 days searching those tunnels. Jake winced. Sorry, ma'am. Sorry doesn't cut it. You're paying for the recovery operation out of your next paycheck. She left, and Jake was alone with his thoughts. He put the Valorian blade on his desk next to a picture of his family back on Earth. 2 symbols of different worlds, sitting side by side. His communicator buzzed. A message from Lyria. Thank you for tonight. Same time next week? Jake smiled and typed back. same time next week. He looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, spinning in the darkness, the world that had made humans what they were. Strong, stubborn, dangerous when they needed to be, but always choosing to be more than just their strength. 3 months ago, he'd stood guard at a diplomatic summit, wearing armor that made him look weak, listening to aliens mock his entire species. Now he was friends with a princess. His people had a real voice in the coalition, and the whole galaxy was learning that humans were so much more than they appeared, all because he'd taken off his armor and shown them the truth. Jake put his armor in its storage case for the night. Tomorrow he'd put it back on and go back to being Lieutenant Morrison, professional soldier, representative of Earth. But tonight he was just Jake, a guy from Colorado who'd had dinner with an alien princess and somehow made the universe a little better. He fell asleep smiling, dreaming of mountains and stars, of Earth and Valoria, of armor and honor and the courage to be gentle in a universe that expected him to be hard. The armor would always be there when he needed it. But now everyone knew what it really meant. And that made all the difference.